I had lunch recently with 4 of my oldest friends, women I've known since we were young, long before any of us knew who we were going to become. We ate, we laughed, we talked over each other the only way you can with people who have decades of permission to do exactly that. And somewhere in the middle of it, I had a realization that's been sitting with me ever since. There's a kind of knowing that only comes with decades. We have that. And yet, there's so much I don't know. Their routines, what's keeping them up at night, what they're hoping for now. Our lives look nothing alike. They haven't for a long time. And yet, I left that lunch feeling incredibly full. That's the paradox this video is about, and I think it's worth talking about because the more clearly we can see it, the more we invest in the friendships that matter most. I'm Dee Dee Sung, and this is Follow Your Lighthouse, a space for women navigating the inner shifts and quiet questions of this chapter of life. Something shifts in your 50s and 60s around friendship. You stop wanting more friends and you start wanting more depth from the ones you already have. The tolerance for surface level connection, the catching up without really catching up, that drops away. And what rises in its place is a craving for something real, for conversations that actually go somewhere, for being known, not just seen, actually known. I think this happens because midlife strips away the roles. The career identity that defined you for decades, the parenting identity that filled your days and told you exactly who you were. The I'm fine, everything is fine identity. When those fall away, and they do, whether you choose it or not, whether it's welcome or not, you find yourself asking a question you maybe haven't asked in years. Who actually knows the real me? And here's what I've noticed. The answer to that question for so many women in this season is the oldest friendships. The women who knew you before you knew who you were supposed to become. The friendships that started before the proving did, before the career, before the titles, before you learned to only show the parts that were going well. Those friendships hold something that no one else holds. And after 50, we finally start to see what we have. I've known these 4 women since we were young. We are talking decades. We've witnessed each other's significant life changes, careers, relationships, children, grandchildren, and loss, the kind that reshapes you permanently, and the quieter kind that changes you without ever quite announcing itself. Sitting at that table, I felt something I wasn't entirely expecting. Not just gratitude, though there was so much of that. Something underneath both of those things. Recognition. Like, there they are, still them, after all these years. And then, almost in the same breath, this other realization. How little I actually know about the day-to-day of their lives. Our lives look nothing alike. They haven't for years. Our circumstances, our rhythms, the worlds we each move through, genuinely different. And yet, sitting there, I kept coming back to this feeling. In our differences, there is sameness. Underneath the different lives, the different circumstances, and different directions that we've each gone in, something in us continues to move in the same direction, the same longings, the same questions about what comes next, the same quiet, growing awareness that time is more precious now, more real than it ever felt before. We may be asking different questions out loud, but underneath all of them, we are asking the same ones. I left that lunch with a full heart, not just happy, full, the way you feel after something genuinely nourishing, not just pleasant. And I've been sitting with that feeling since, wanting to understand what it actually was. Because it wasn't nostalgia, It wasn't simply the comfort of shared history, though that was part of it. It was something more alive than that. It was the feeling of being known, really known, in a season where much of who I am is still shifting, still finding its shape, when I'm still getting to know this version of myself. When some days I look up and think, I don't entirely recognize the woman taking shape in me. And I find that more exciting than unsettling. That's what these friendships offer, to be truly known by women who have held every version of you before this one, who knew you before any of it and through all of it, who have watched you go through enough change to know when you're in motion, you keep finding your way. That kind of knowing doesn't require keeping up with the details of each other's daily lives. It is a different kind of knowing altogether, and I think I'm only now beginning to understand what it actually is. And I want to say something about long-standing friendships that I don't think you can fully understand until you're in this chapter of life. These friendships are precious because of what they hold across time, not in spite of the stretches when life kept you apart, but because of what's still there when you come back together. The ease, the familiarity, the feeling that no time has passed at all. Think about what a long friendship actually contains. Every version of you. The woman you were at 20, uncertain and wide open. The woman in your 30s, building the career, the family, the life you were creating. The woman who navigated something genuinely hard in her 40s and came out the other side different, changed in ways you didn't fully choose. Every version held by someone who was there, and because she was there, she knows something essential. You've been through change before, many times, and you always found your footing. When you sit across from a friend who has known all of those versions, something happens that is almost impossible to describe. You don't have to earn the knowing. You don't have to explain the backstory or establish the context or prove yourself. The foundation of who you are is already laid. That is not a small thing, especially now, because midlife can be disorienting in the most necessary, meaningful, sometimes uncomfortable way. It asks you to let go of identities that no longer fit, to find yourself on the other side of roles that defined who you were for decades, to live with questions that don't have clear answers about who you are now and where you go from here. And that can feel lonely. Not the loneliness of being alone, the loneliness of feeling unseen in the middle of the change, of being surrounded by people who know the old version of you and not quite being able to explain that the woman they don't know isn't quite who you are anymore. Long friendships offer something for that specific loneliness. Not because your oldest friends understand every detail of what you're going through, they may not, but because they have watched you go through change before. They know at a level beneath words that you have been in transition before and you have come through it more yourself. They are not afraid of the version that's emerging. They are curious about her. There is a kind of knowing that lives underneath biography. It is the knowing of character, of what moves a person at their core, of who someone is when everything around them and within them has changed, and it always does. Midlife is when that finally hits you. And here's what I think. We don't always fully appreciate those friendships precisely because they've always been there. The oldest friendships can become so familiar we stop seeing them for the gift they are. Midlife has a way of making you look up and actually see what you have. I came home from that lunch wanting to be closer to these 4 women I adore more than I've made time to be, because what we have is real and worth nurturing. I've had glimmers of this before. Now I'm certain, and I trust it completely. So here is where I want to land with you. This is not a video about something lost. It is not a conversation about letting go. This is about recognizing what you already have and then choosing intentionally to invest in it. Sustaining a long friendship isn't about maintaining the status quo. It's not about the occasional check-in or the annual catch-up that leaves you feeling both connected and somehow still not connecting at any real depth. Sustaining means deciding actively that this person deserves more of you now, not out of obligation, because this season has showed you what you have and what it would mean to lose it by not making the time. Growing with a friendship means showing each other who you are now, not the version from 20 years ago, the current version, the one still figuring things out, the woman you are now, still changing and still finding her way, more yourself than ever. She deserves to be known by the women who have known every version of her before this one. I think we sometimes hold back with our oldest friends more than with anyone, precisely because they've known us so long. There's a version of us we think they expect, and we slip back into it without realizing. We show up as who we were to them instead of who we are now. Growing into a long friendship means giving each other permission to show up as who you are now, and that's not always easy. Sometimes we hold back, wondering how we'll be received, keeping the more vulnerable parts of ourselves tucked away just to feel safe. But these are the women who already know you. The risk is smaller than it feels. That's not a hard conversation, it's an honest one. And in my experience, it's the kind that makes an old friend lean across the table and say, "Tell me more." These are not friendships to maintain, these are friendships to grow into. And part of growing into these friendships, especially now, is being each other's biggest champions. My oldest friends and I are in our late 60s, moving towards 70. The challenges are real: health, loss, and all the things that come with this stage of life. What I know is we show up for each other. We cheer each other on, and whoever needs it most in that moment, that's where we put our attention. That's what it looks like when friendship grows with you instead of just being there in the background. It doesn't take 50 years to build a friendship like that. It takes honesty, shared history, even if that history is only 2 or 3 years old, a willingness to actually know about each other. Some of the deepest friendships in a woman's life begin in her 50s and 60s, precisely because she finally knows who she is and what she's looking for. Think of your oldest friendship, the one with the deepest history. When did you last show her who you are now? Don't rush past that question. And if you'd like a gentle place to begin, I've created something for you. It's called the 72-Hour Compass Reset, just 10 minutes a day for 3 days. It helps you see whose expectations have been running your life, discover what you actually want now, and leave with one clear next step you can trust. The description is in the link below. And remember, keep turning toward your own light, because every small, steady step you take in the direction of clarity and courage is already guiding you home. Take care, and I will see you soon.